can be harmful to the people living there.
There's a risk that this home closes its doors as a retirement home and the next day opens up as just seniors housing, maybe with some supports that they can purchase. That takes them necessarily outside of the regulatory area, and they end up operating illegally, but under the cover of being just a senior's residence. And that is a real worry.
The Retirement Homes Regulatory Authority says that the licensee of the home, which is a numbered company, can appeal this order. That would go through the License Appeal Tribunal.
Thanks so much for that, Jen. That's the CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa reporting. There's a warning tonight for local residents about a possible exposure to the measles infection. The Windsor-Essex County Health Unit says there are several locations where these exposures could have happened. The A&R Medical Center on Tecumseh Road West on January 15th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. The Highway 401 westbound en route West Lorne location on January 11th from about 8:30 p.m. until about 10:40 p.m. and some flights from Germany to Pearson Airport in Toronto. Anyone who may have been exposed should monitor for symptoms for up to 21 days after exposure. Symptoms include a fever, runny nose, cough, and drowsiness. The measles virus spreads easily in the air when someone coughs, talks, or sneezes. The virus particles can be in the air for up to 2 hours after an infected person has left the space. Anyone who has not had measles or been vaccinated can become sick. A male nurse who used to work at the Windsor Assembly plant is facing allegations of sexual misconduct. That's according to a hearing notice by the College of Nurses of Ontario. The CBC's Dawson Chen joins us with more. Dawson, what's the nature of these allegations?
Meg, the disciplinary hearing stems from complaints from one female patient and 3 female nursing colleagues. Windsor Assembly Plant employs a team of roughly 16 nurses to provide medical care for its thousands of workers. The man who is the subject of this hearing was one of those nurses. The allegations involve incidents between June 2020 to March 2021.
And what is alleged in these complaints?
The female patient alleged that the man rubbed her neck, back, shoulders, and arms in a manner that was not for clinical purposes. One of the nurse complainants said the man hugged her without her consent on multiple occasions, and he was aroused on at least one of those occasions. Another nurse complainant said he would make comments to her about other women's bodies, and he told her a story about being flashed. 3 of the complainants allege he texted them unprofessional messages about being in bed, about friends with benefits.
And what do we know about this man, Dawson?
Meg, this is a very experienced nurse. He first registered with the College of Nurses of Ontario in 1982. But he hasn't worked as a nurse in Ontario for the past 2 years. He resigned his registration in December 2021. He's also been registered as a nurse in Michigan since 1983. That's set to expire later this year. The CNO hearing is still scheduled to happen on February 26. CBC News has not been able to find contact information for the man.
And Dawson, what penalties can he face now that he's no longer a nurse?
Even though he gave up his CNO registration, the discipline committee could still order a fine of up to $35,000. Therapy or counseling for which he must reimburse the college, a requirement that he must notify employers of the college's decision, an oral reprimand that he must attend, and other measures.
And what does Stellantis have to say about all this?
The company has told CBC they don't comment on legal proceedings as a matter of corporate policy.
Well, thanks so much for that, Dawson. That's the CBC's Dawson Chen reporting live. The city continues to work on a deal with unionized Transit Windsor workers. A federal mediator is expected to help the two sides negotiate this weekend. The union warns that this is their final attempt before a strike. They say they're looking for a 3 to 4% annual raise over a multi-year deal. Federally mandated sick days have also been a sticking point. The union issued and then revoked a strike notice earlier this month. Officials say they'll provide an update Monday morning for transit users. Meanwhile, a pair of city councilors are pitching council on a budget amendment that enhances Transit Windsor service. They say that the city should end the extra buses that are used for high school students. They still will provide services to students inside of transit routes, some of which would be altered. Some of those routes are part of the master plan previously endorsed by council, but not part of this budget. Councillors Fabio Costante and Kieran McKenzie say it would improve service and keep the tax hike at the cost of inflation. McKenzie says they're also looking at an exemption to the proposed fare increases.
We have the Affordable Pass program. I'm exploring, and there'll be further questions on this on Monday to administration, the opportunity to exempt the folks who are in the Affordable Pass program, which is delivered through Pathway to Potential, from the fare increases, and whether or not, if that exemption is able to proceed, what that might look like from a impact to the levy. It's a little murky, to be honest, in the budget documents as to how those revenue projections based on the fare increases actually impact levy directly. I know there would be an increase in revenue, real dollars, for Transit Windsor, but in terms of what that levy impact is, that's an ongoing discussion that I'm engaged with our administration.
Ice jams on the Puce River are causing water levels to rise and some flooding in the area. Take a look. This is what the Puce River looked like this afternoon. Warmer temperatures have caused ice to break up and form jams on the river. The runoff from rain this week is also causing water levels to rise. A flood watch has been issued for the lower Thames River watershed. The Essex Region Conservation Authority has extended a watershed condition statement advisory for Essex County until noon tomorrow. The municipality of Lakeshore closed West Puce Road today due to flooding over the road. A Puce resident CBC talked to today says he hasn't seen conditions this bad in 20 years.
We have a break wall, so we're still a foot below, but neighbors next to me, it's 50 feet on their lawn. Some of the docks have been ripped off, so it's really a bad thing. Flooding is a real problem, right? This can really cause some trouble. I don't have a basement myself, but neighbors do, so there can be some real problems here later today.
Have you talked to some people about any damage?
I have just talked to people on the phone, so they're quite concerned.
Anybody got damage yet?
Not that I heard of.
IRCA is encouraging people to take extra caution and avoid areas where flooding has occurred. They are warning people to stay away from slippery river banks and the fast-moving water can be dangerous. Children, pets, and livestock should be kept away from flowing or standing water. The joint Windsor-Essex kickoff to Black History Month will be held tonight at the Caribbean Center on Central Avenue. Festivities begin in about an hour from now. The purpose is to publicly recognize the importance of Black History Month, as well as encourage the community to participate in a number of events happening locally.
It features Black history trivia and highlights, as well as live performances. We're going to have some poetry and some singing, and always an opportunity for local organizations and institutions to announce some of the really cool things they have happening over the next month.
Windsorites are heading to California to help cheer on the Detroit Lions this weekend. We caught up with Richard Raymond and Kathy McCann, longtime Lions fans who drove the Pacific Coast Highway in an RV on what they're calling a spontaneous trip. It wasn't that Raymond didn't think the Lions would get so far in the season. In fact, he's been confident from day one this season.
So back after they won the game against Kansas City, the opening game, I booked a campground in Las Vegas for Super Bowl weekend.
So on the first game, you booked a spot in Las Vegas, hoping they would make it.
Yes, 100%.
His positivity has worked.
Right after they beat the Bucks on last Sunday, I got on StubHub, bought 4 tickets. I got 2 of my sons are flying in tonight. And I sent a text to Kathy with a copy of the tickets while we were at a party for the Bucks game. And she turned around and looked at me and said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, we're going to San Francisco for the game."
So I understand you've been walking around with your Detroit Lions gear on. What are the looks you're getting from people? Have you had any conversations?
Actually, quite a few. And the one that sticks out the most to me was they said, "You know what? We would rather lose to the Lions than get beat by Baltimore or Kansas City."
Everybody's supportive.
Very supportive. I thought I'd get beat up, but nope, not yet. I'm expecting a lot of Lions fans because this is, for most of us in our lifetime, this is the first opportunity.
I feel like it's our little mini Super Bowl because, you know, they need to do this, and it's
not
exciting.
a Super Bowl till we're in the Super Bowl.
That's what he said.
You had a good time, obviously.
We've had a great
Yeah,
time.
we have.
The only thing I'm worried about is we're going to do tour Alcatraz tomorrow, and when you go in the cell, because we're all going to have our Lion stuff on, I hope they don't lock us up and keep us in there because we do want to go to the game.
Windsor is crawling with excited Lions fans looking forward to this weekend's game. However, there's at least one of us who isn't as amused. Windsor Morning's Amy Dodge spoke with former NFLer Luke Wilson, also a LaSalle native, about his time on the Detroit Lions, as well as what goes into a moment like this one.
You've made comments about your dislike towards the Lions. Have the recent wins sort of changed your tune?
No. I mean, I'm excited for Windsor. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited for the city. I think it's great for the football scene. But, you know, it's probably going to take a little more than just a couple playoff wins for me to jump back on the Lions bandwagon. Let's put it that way.
Why?
You know, I thought that my time there was, it was pretty short-lived. But with, you know, the whole coaching staff, it was just very disappointing, very unprofessional at times.
We are also one game away from the Super Bowl, which is also exciting. And I just want you to get us into the players' psyche. You said you've been there twice. There's still one more big game that they would have to win. What's going through the players' minds?
For this game in particular, I think it's just play as clean as you can. And what I mean by that is, I remember my rookie year when we played San Francisco, which was the infamous Richard Sherman tip game. It was one of those things where before the game, I knew it was going to be a very heavyweight battle, which this one will be. I mean, there's stars all over the field, especially on both offenses. And I just remember thinking, you got to really understand that it's a huge moment, but understand that there's a reason that you got yourself there. So by pressing or trying too much or trying to do something that you shouldn't be doing might be the mistake that cost the game.
A new documentary is exploring the hardcore punk scene in the area. It will get its first local screening at the Meteor Lounge this weekend. It's called Dope Hookers and Pavement, the real and imagined history of Detroit hardcore. And while the film focuses on the scene across the river in the late 70s and early 80s, a large portion of it also explores its connection to Windsor. The screening event will also include a discussion about the secret history of Windsor's punk scene.
A big part of the history of the Detroit hardcore punk scene actually takes place here in Windsor because they had no venue in the States, and we had a venue, the Coronation Tavern on Riverside Drive, and so they were able to come over here and play. We had a lot of American bands playing here, and in particular, one night in August 1981, a band called Minor Threat came from Washington, D.C. and blew everybody away.
That's a big memory for you?
It's a big memory for me, and I'm not going to get into my memories. They're not as big, they're not as strong as I want them to be. This is one of the reasons why I'm convening this session, is to get other people's stories. I strongly recommend this documentary, not because I'm in it, but because the filmmaker has really talked to a bunch of people with different viewpoints, and he's spliced them together in such a way that you come out of it, it's called The Real and Imagined History of Detroit Hardcore Punk, and you come out of it thinking, well, there's a lot of points of view. My own memory might not be correct.
Hardcore was just this very teenage male distillation of the aggro intensity of punk into this just little bald suburban pill.
Does it give you a little bit of nostalgia?
Oh, for sure, but I try to resist that, to be honest with you, because it was, I wonder if I'd go to a hardcore punk show today. I'm not really sure. It was grungy. Otto wanted to do something more than just have a screening of the film, and because of the importance of Windsor in this documentary and how it's really important, but it's also gets the brush off eventually because the focus turns back to Detroit, we thought it would be a good idea to bring the focus back to Windsor.
Well, that fog has settled enough to see out of the tower camera at least. We have your full weather forecast coming up after the break. It's that time of the week, your weekend weather forecast. The CBC's Victor Paulo breaks it down for us.
Another cloudy day here in Windsor. It seems like as if we just can't get a proper day of sunshine with some good sunlight. And unfortunately, taking a look at our weekend, it's not going to be any sunshine in store because we have some overcast, some scattered showers. Tonight might even have some potential fog patches. And there is some snow that's coming our way once we start Sunday. Now, average high this time of year for January 26th is -1 is your average high and -8.4 is your average low. And taking a look at what we're expecting tonight in the Windsor region, well, it's going to be 2 degrees. It will be some scattered showers and there will be some overcast with potential fog patches as well. Now, taking an overview look as to what's happening over the Windsor area for the next couple of hours, well, similar to like I was saying before, we're not getting any of this right here. Any of this high pressure system, which is bringing in that nice sunlight, which is bringing in that sunshine, which we love so much. Unfortunately, over here on the East Coast, we're getting a lot of thick cloud cover from north all the way south, all the way through, and no one is really getting any of that sunshine anywhere close to where we are. But taking a closer look as to what exactly we're going to be expecting, well, overnight tonight, there'll be just a touch of scattered showers, but the big theme here for Saturday is just going to be that cloud cover. It's going to be mainly cloudy, no real sunshine, and once we get closer to Sunday, well, there's that snow that's coming our way. That snow is going to last all the way through to about supper time, but then once it's all said and done, we're in store for some more cloud cover and overcast into our Monday night. Now, looking at our 3 and 7 day forecast, it's going to be some cloudy days in store, but still we're in the middle of that mild winter with highs of 4 on Saturday and Sunday, high of 3 on Monday. And taking a look at your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, well, more mild temperatures, a chance of mix of rain, snow, and ice pellets on Tuesday. But outside of that, Wednesday and Friday has a chance for a bit of sunlight, but none of those days which are full of sun. Hope you have yourselves a warm weekend, Windsor, and looking forward to talking to you next week. Over to you, Meg.
Thanks, Victor. That's the CBC's Victor Paulo. Now, after the break, we talked to Josiah Sinanen about a weekend event you might want to check out. That's coming up. The Windsor Symphony Orchestra has 2 special shows happening at the Capitol Theatre this weekend. And here to tell us more about what we can expect is Josiah Sinanen. Welcome.
Hi, Meg. Good to be back.
What is the Symphony Orchestra up to this weekend?
Yeah, so this is really cool, and it's really something different for our city. If you've been to the Symphony before, you know that there's kind of a visual component to it, and you get this sense of immersion in the music. You see the conductor working, you can hone in on some of the instruments involved in the sound. And our very own Windsor Symphony Orchestra has decided to take that immersive quality to the next level. So they're performing a composition this weekend that is written to evoke the sounds of the ocean and seascapes. But you'll actually be watching real artwork as the symphony plays, and it comes from the vault of our city's own art collection. So today on Afternoon Drive, we spoke to the composer of the piece, as well as the maestro of the orchestra, Robert Franz. Here's Franz explaining more of the concept.
This idea of taking a piece of art apart and putting it together in front of your eyes was really intriguing to me. So we put these 2 elements together, and I said to her, are there pieces in the gallery that aren't on regular display, that are down in the vaults, that are inspired by similar seascapes to the ones that inspired Robert Rival, the composer? The answer, of course, was yes. And her team got together and created an immersive experience with those artworks in the collection that will be shown at the concerts over top of the orchestra while the orchestra performs Robert's piece.
Josiah, this seems like a very interesting collaboration. You also had the composer on the show today. What was that like?
Yeah, Meg, he explained it in a very poetic way. So the piece that he composed is called Water, and it comes in 3 movements. It's inspired by his time at the West Coast and looking at the ocean and the waterscapes there. So he came up with this idea of having that art as a backdrop to this song, specifically those seascapes, after Franz, who you just heard from, heard the piece. So he collaborated with Art Windsor Essex to bring this together. But the cool thing about the composer, Robert Rival, is that he hasn't seen what this looks like altogether. So he hasn't actually heard his song with that artwork on display. He doesn't know what it's going to be like. So if you plan on attending this weekend, it'll all be unfolding before your eyes, that creation and collaboration of our city.
So what do we need to know? Give me the details.
Of course. So, well, first off, Meg, I would recommend listening to the full interview from Afternoon Drive today. It was a lovely piece. You can find that on the CBC Listen app. And if you want to check out the show, there's 2 showings this weekend at the Capitol Theatre, one tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. and the other one is at 2:30 on Sunday. And again, that's at the Capitol Theatre with the Windsor Symphonic Orchestra.
What a interesting collaboration of music and of sights and sounds. That sounds like it's going to be a great time.
Yeah, a taste for the senses and a taste of Windsor and the talent we have here. It should be really exciting.
And we do have lots of that, of course.
We do. And hopefully we'll talk more about that as the future goes on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that, Josiah. That's the CBC's Josiah Sinanen. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here next week.